So guys, when it comes to investing, I think most of us can pinpoint that exact moment where the light bulb finally flickered on for us, that split second, when you caught that initial investing bug and realized the world isn't just about trading hours for dollars. For me, that moment didn't actually hit until sometime in my mid 20s. But looking back, the seeds were planted way earlier than I realized. I don't remember exactly how old I was, maybe somewhere in my teens, but at some point my parents set up these custodial accounts for me and all my siblings. Now, if you aren't familiar, a custodial account is basically an investment account that an adult manages on behalf of a kid until that kid becomes an adult themselves and can take the wheel. And from that point on, every single Christmas, every birthday, every random holiday where a gift was expected, we weren't getting the new Grand Theft Auto or cool sneakers. Nope, we were getting cold hard cash deposited into our Charles Schwab accounts, which very quickly became the running joke of the entire family. Let us be real here for a second. Money that you literally cannot spend is probably the least exciting gift you can get as a kid. It's right up there with getting a gift card to a podiatrist's office or a pack of plain white socks. So we always give our parents a hard time about it, complaining that we wanted something we could actually play with or use right now. And they would always respond with the exact same line they say, someday you will be so glad that we did this for you. And sure enough, man, they were 100% right, but it took a long time for that reality to actually sink into my thick skull. Even as I entered young adulthood and started navigating the real world, investing was sitting very low on my list of priorities. I remember a point in my early 20s when my roommate at the time started putting some spare change into an app called Acorns. This was back when investing apps were still relatively new and shiny, definitely the pre-Robinhood era for most of us. I thought it was a cool concept, but I still didn't really get the deep soul of investing yet. I knew I had that Schwab account sitting there, but for some reason it felt stuffy and uninteresting like an old library book. But Acorns was different. It was automated, the app was super sleek, it felt modern, and maybe because of that it just felt cooler and easier to use. So I ended up putting a tiny bit of money into it myself just to say I was doing it. At the time though, I was working a low-wage job, barely scraping by paying rent, spending hours at the gym, and hitting the bars on the weekends, doing normal early 20s stuff. I really didn't have much capital to dedicate to building a future because I was too busy trying to survive the present. My contributions were sporadic at best, and really investing was just an afterthought, something I did when I felt guilty about spending too much on a Friday night. Fast forward just a few short years though, and my entire reality completely shifted. In my mid-20s, a few years after that, Acorns era, I landed a job that, to be completely honest, made me absolutely miserable every single day. I was working practically every day of the week. I wasn't getting paid nearly enough, at least in my opinion, and I was dealing with constant crushing stress. When I look back on that period, it was probably one of the unhappiest and darkest times of my entire life. I was rarely in a good mood. I was grumpy, I was defensive, and I really was not a lot of fun to be around at all. I knew it then, but I feel okay saying it out loud. Now, with the benefit of hindsight and enough time passed to realize I was likely dealing with some level of depression, that job really did a number on my mental health and made me feel like I was a cog in a machine that was designed to grind me down. I don't remember exactly where I first saw it, but at some point I stumbled across a quote from Warren Buffett. I probably didn't even know who he was at the time, but it was that classic line where he says, if you don't find a way to make money in your sleep, you will work until you die. Given the situation I was in with that soul-sucking job, that quote hit me like a freaking freight train. I remember sitting there thinking, there is no way in heck I am going to be working this specific job for the rest of my life. If that was going to be my destiny, if that was the end of the road for me, I honestly was not going to make it very long. But that was the spark, guys. That was the moment where the switch finally flipped inside my head. Investing stopped being this stuffy, boring thing that my dad would always try and lecture me about over dinner. Instead, I finally started to understand the deep emotional why behind why people actually bother to invest their hard-earned money. You don't do it just to see numbers move on a screen. You do it so you don't have to work if you don't want to. You invest to gain total ownership over your time and over your life. Investing is the ultimate exit strategy, the literal fire escape from a life of mandatory labor. And for me, investing became this bright light at the end of a very dark tunnel. I think that few decisions in my life have had a bigger impact than that specific choice to start taking investing seriously. I started getting really dialed in right around the same time the pandemic hit the world. I was home a lot. I definitely wasn't going out to bars, and suddenly I had all this time to learn how the plumbing of the financial world actually works. Because at that point, I really had no clue what I was doing. I was just a guy with a dream and a laptop. So I did what most people do to learn about things these days. I went to YouTube University. That was where I was first introduced to the legends like Graham Stephan and Jeremy from Financial Education and Andre Geek. It was through their videos that I got my first real exposure to the world of dividend investing. That led me down the rabbit hole to creators like PPC Ian and Russ and Darth Dividends and Bruce Wang. Shout out to Bruce Wang. I really miss that guy. As content, the more I started to watch those guys, the more the entire concept started to click in my brain. Dividend investing just made sense to me on a fundamental level. Being totally new to all this with zero prior experience, this dividend thing was so easy to wrap my head around without a finance degree. All you have to do is buy shares of recognizable everyday companies that literally everyone uses. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, Starbucks, Microsoft. And just by owning a tiny piece of those companies, they send you regular paychecks just for being a partner. The idea of getting paid just for being a shareholder made my exit strategy from that miserable job crystal clear. All I needed to do was build up my dividend income to the point where it exceeded the money I was making from my job. Because at that point, once I was able to check that box, it was game over. I wouldn't even need the job anymore because idea of passive income flowing in. The way it grows made total sense too. You start small, you collect the dividends, and then you reinvest every single penny back into the market. Now you own even more shares, and then the next time those companies pay out the dividend is a little bit bigger. If you just repeat that process over and over again, basically into perpetuity, it compounds into something absolutely substantial. The hard part for most people is right at the very beginning when you re-getting those first payments, and it's only like a couple dollars or a few cents. It is so easy to feel like it's going to take forever to reach a point where you regenerating a meaningful amount of income. Fortunately for me, though, I was already pretty comfortable with the idea of delayed gratification. That is the name of the game with dividend investing, and I already had that mindset because of my background in health and fitness. I'd been into working out and heavy weightlifting since right after high school, and those principles translate perfectly to the stock market. I mean, you don't walk into the gym on day one and expect to immediately start benching 225 pounds. You start with the empty bar, you focus on form, and you build it up slowly over weeks and months. Building a dividend portfolio is the exact same discipline. It's all about small, consistent progress over time. And now at this point, I've basically been investing seriously for just over 6 years. During that time, I've gone from basically $0 in dividends to now averaging close to $400 every single month. And because of the sheer power of compounding, that snowball is only going to grow faster from here on out. Over the handful of years that I've been doing this investing has taught me so much, not just about balance sheets, but about life itself. If there is anything that I think you should take away from my journey so far, it's these two major points. Number one, you do not have to be a genius to be a successful investor. You don't need a fancy finance degree or a job as a Wall Street analyst. If a simpleton like myself can figure this stuff out and make it work, then truly anyone listening to this can too. And the second thing is that this is one of those rare things in life that just keeps getting better the longer you do it. If you can stay disciplined and stay consistent over time, you will be rewarded in ways you can even imagine. Right now, I say this all the time, but dividend investing really is the gift that keeps on giving. It has completely changed my life just in the few years I've been dedicated to the craft. Not only am I financially better off, but it has changed the fundamental way I think about my existence on this planet. I think most people think investing is just about hoarding green pieces of paper because of greed. But real investing is about having total ownership over your precious time. It is about being able to do what you want when you want and with whom you want. At the root of it, that is what all of us are actually searching for on this journey, which is complete and total freedom. Investing is just the vehicle to get to that destination. We only get one shot at this life, and I believe it is way too short to spend it doing things you hate just to make ends meet. Life is meant to be spent doing the things you actually want to do because your basic needs are already taken care of by your assets. Still, with that said, financial freedom is something that you are going to achieve overnight like a lottery win. You will have to spend some time doing things you don't like, at least for a season of your life. But financial freedom is something that anyone can work toward if they have the right shield and the right strategy. I think everyone should start as soon as humanly possible because time is your greatest ally. And even though it starts off painfully slow, do not let that initial crawl deter you from the path. The snowball really does pick up mass, and it starts rolling a lot faster than you think once you hit that critical mass. All you have to do is just get started today and just keep going no matter what the headlines say. Oh shit, I almost forgot, if you want to see inside my entire dividend stock portfolio and see the actual receipts, then check out this next video right over here. In that one, I'll be going through every single position in my portfolio and breaking down its performance and its weighting. I'll show you exactly how it all fits into my overall strategy for total freedom. So click right over here to learn all about that. Peace.